First they legalized marijuana in New York, and then they decriminalized prostitution. That's just crazy, because for me, with everybody getting vaccinated, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing summer.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, an LGBT podcast. We are streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Our guest today is Ed Stern. He is the co-host of Inside Out LGBTQ Talk Radio Show on WPFW 89.3 FM in DC, and soon to be a graduate as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. He joins us today to discuss the importance of finding queer affirming psychiatric care and why non-affirming is dangerous for the members of our community. My name is Tom, and I am your host, and as always, I'm in the studio with my friends, starting with this first one.
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
It's Nitch. And
J Bear.
And welcoming y'all to The Dish. Hi, Nitch.
Oh, my God. Why can't I hear myself?
Oh, you want more power? Which one are you, damn it?
I don't know. I just want you to turn yourself down a little bit and me up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Is that what you want? Okay.
I don't know what I want.
All right. There you go. So how are you, Nick? Or should I say Nitch? You want to tell the story about this?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't want that on air. No, I don't.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're not ready for it.
No.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
I'm all right.
Yeah. You all right?
Second week of work.
Well, this technically is going to be, right, it's the start of your second week, and this is going to be your full week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's going to go through it.
Oh, yeah. I'm already going through it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You dive right in.
Yeah.
Balls deep.
Yeah. It's just hard to not have a team of people. Like, I'm so used to having people to bounce ideas off of and like build concepts with. And right now, I don't feel as a part of the team yet.
Right.
And so I don't really I tried to do that with somebody today and it didn't really work because he had to explain. Every single time he was giving me feedback, he felt like he needed to critique it, or defend it. And I'm like, no, literally the reason I sent you this email and the reason I want you to look at it and talk through it with me is because I need somebody to bounce ideas off of, but it just didn't work. It didn't work. And so, I mean, that's part of starting a new job. It's like building rapport, not only with your new boss, but with your coworkers.
Right.
So,
well, it's only day 4 technically, right? Because you worked 3 days last week.
Yeah.
And so this is literally your 4th day. So give it some time. They're just sizing you up.
But you know me. I want to get that shit done.
I know, but it's just one step at a time, one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know?
I know.
She's,
I'll trip on my Barbie heels.
Yeah, I know. So, Mr. J Bear, how are you?
Fantasticals.
He's back in the house.
Back in the house.
As you can see, Chris sent us a text today, and he was like,
Oh.
Oh.
Speak louder. No.
Sorry, Siri.
Maybe she's sort of kind of giving you a hint on what the employees there are going through. We're having trouble hearing you.
Who has trouble hearing me?
Honey, you can hear that thing coming around the corner. Yep. You got time to comb your hair, perk up your boobs, put your panties on right, make sure your pad is gone, all that good stuff.
I was walking into the office today and two of the people I work with were like talking about somebody on Facebook. They were looking somebody up and they were like, oh my God, that photo is so doctored. And I literally am walking by the office when I heard that. I'm like, are you guys on my Instagram?
Well, I can tell you whatever it was that you were doing when you were entering the building, it wasn't walking.
Oh no, it was sachet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Sachet away.
Oh, well.
So J Bear, how are you?
Good. I did my homework.
You did your homework.
Yes.
So last week, we didn't know something, and you said you were going to look it up.
Yeah. So, no. We talked about pose.
Pose, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. So you were supposed to actually see the second episode of the first episode of season 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, were you guys talking about the cemetery part? That's what you guys were.
Yeah.
I've been there, so it's a little weird. But yeah, my oldest daughter, Debbie, her grandmother's buried there.
So I'm actually talking about Heart Island.
Yeah.
It's really.
Yeah, Debbie and Roxanne's grandmother's buried there.
Stop.
She died of HIV. She died of AIDS during the pandemic. So
during the pandemic,
during the AIDS pandemic, then yes.
So they buried her there. Why?
Because that's the way they were doing it back then.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so
same thing as now. Like right now with the whole COVID pandemic, they're doing the same exact thing. So the island was an island that they used for medical purposes, and
it used to be a sanitarium.
A sanitarium, and it was for people that were ill, and then they shut it down. The city shut it down, and originally they were talking about moving like Rikers Island to that island, but it was too small. So then it just kind of became, they had their burial sites there for people that died at the island when they were in the sanitarium. So it's a little it's weird because my wife sat down and we watched it. We watched the whole season actually, but for us it's kind of nostalgic more than anything, and like we were seeing things in the movie, and especially the island. She's like, "Oh my God, I forgot about that," you know?
Right.
And it's like it's just bringing back old thoughts of stuff that we've lived through, unfortunately.
Right.
For Tom and I, like, I didn't know about Heart Island, and watching, I mean, now after going through COVID and seeing how they were, shoving bodies into,
pine boxes.
Not even pine boxes. They were putting them in like ice trucks.
Yeah. During this pandemic, yes.
Yeah, and watching them kind of just bury these what's the word I'm looking for? These unnamed,
untagged,
unwanted.
Everybody's a number.
Yeah, unwanted, unnamed bodies.
Unclaimed.
It just tore us apart.
The majority of the homeless people that pass away in New York City are buried there. People that don't have the money, and I remember this, and that was part of the issue with the girl's grandmother. The family just didn't have the money to pay for the services. So what happens is the body goes to the morgue to Kings County at the time. I don't know if it's still Kings County now. They would hold the body, and then after 30 days, if it wasn't claimed, it was automatically buried in the island.
Wow.
And that's what the city does. The city's been doing that for as long as the island has been used for a burial ground.
Wow.
Oh my
So
God.
Unclaimed bodies, unclaimed infants, unclaimed.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's heartbreaking. It's so, and then I was watching that and I was like, this has to be what the guys were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mean, yeah, it's got that shock factor for a lot of people that have never,
And the amount
And
of
the
bodies you
yeah.
see,
There
they're
are
burying.
thousands and thousands of bodies that were buried in a mass burial.
mass burials.
Of people that were not claimed that died of AIDS in the 80s because parents didn't want to claim their children out of
People, and
embarrassment.
I remember. I mean, I was younger then, but even at that, I mean, I was in my teens, and I remember one of my neighbors, her brother was trans, and he used to come in and out, and people in the building, oh, be careful, he might be sick, And back then, you didn't know any better, you're going by what adults are telling you.
Right.
And even at that, I saw him, I talked to him, I would say hi to him, I would treat him like everybody else. For me, there was not that separation of illness, and they were like, you don't know how that's contagious, don't touch the same doorknobs they touch, and it was this whole phobia.
Yeah.
Right.
So, living through it in New York City during that timeline, it was scary for someone, especially a teenager that has no idea at that point.
And I obviously at my age I did not live through that time period where I was aware and or out. I was too young.
Right.
The only experience I can vividly remember of somebody saying something along those lines to me, my best friend's mom was with this person at the time, and we were celebrating somebody's birthday, and I don't know, somebody went to take a sip out of my cup or something like that, right? And this guy said, "Oh no, don't do that." And I was like, "Well, it's fine. Like, it's, you know, so and so can have a sip of my drink." And he's like, "It's not about that. It's just about, like, you know,
being safe
and not getting other people sick." And I'm like, "What are you referring to? Like, I'm completely fine." He's like, "Well, I mean, you're gay."
Mm-hmm.
And that is in some ways a mindset of a generation, but at the same time, I was like, I was just shocked and floored. I had never experienced anything like that. It was really eye-opening.
Yeah. You know, it's been over 30 years since the mid-'80s now, and that's hard to swallow. Just even saying that sentence just made me almost gag. But it's been over 30 years, and it's interesting how that was the conversation that people were having then. And today we have a guest talking about finding queer affirming psychiatric care for our members of our community, and to see how the conversation has changed so dramatically in just 30 plus years. Right. But then, you know, you still see some of the struggle, you know, some of the bias against members of the community that are HIV positive or even others, period. It's just incredibly, so that episode just fucked me up. It humbles,
it'll humble a lot of people that just don't realize. And, you know, it was hard trying to separate from that at times. I mean, you know, we had family, you know, I had family members that were in the, you know, or out, I should say, that were out. But half of the family wouldn't even talk to them. They wouldn't even bring them up in conversation because it was the person you don't talk about.
Right.
You know, which is kind of sad. Me growing up, and I knew I was attracted to both sexes at that age, that fucked me up even worse.
Right.
You know, because I figured if I would say anything to the fact or to the effect of me being attracted to men, they were going to probably assume that I had HIV. Mm-hmm. That was my thinking then.
Right.
You know what I mean? And,
but it's probably still their thought process.
Exactly. And
right?
you know, it's considered the gay cancer, and only gay people. At the beginning, it was, you know, the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, I've seen, you know, unfortunately, quite a few infants that were born positive at the time because they didn't know how to treat it or how to, you know, so. I attended more funerals in my lifetime that I care to mention, to be honest. So even now, as an adult, and it kind of takes me back to when my father passed like 6 years ago. Everybody thought I was going to lose my shit, you know? But I think that unfortunately, have been conditioned to death.
You and me both, honey.
You mean to tell me that it's been 6 years since your father passed away?
Yes, it's insane.
It only seemed like it was yesterday.
Like, it seems recent still, but it's been 6 years almost.
I suppose time really does fly when you're on Prozac.
So, you know, when you look at the effects and the stuff, you know, growing up now, you know better. You're an adult, you understand. But
you're right.
Back then, you had no clue, and you kind of go by what you hear, and especially. You know, me, I grew up in a one-parent household. My mother didn't have more than a 6th grade education. So she kind of, whatever she heard in the news or whatever she read in the paper, you know, was kind of like.
Or from the
what she heard from the vecinas with the bochinches, you know, that's what they knew. So, you know, for me, it was a little bit harder to realize, you know, or to be where I'm at today. You know, and shit took me till I was 35 to actually say it out loud.
Yeah, you know,
it's devastating. It's a big blow.
It's funny because I was listening to a book, obviously. I was listening to a book the other day, and there was you know, a kid who he was going to come out. He wanted to come out, was gay, had met somebody, whatever. Super amazing family, super supportive family, but was so afraid to come out because of like side comments the father would make. And like, not that the father, like, and I'm not going to tell you the story, but like at the end of the day, the father didn't care. The father loved the child, right? The father wanted to, you know,
Is there a gay book you haven't read or listened to?
I'm trying to find them. I literally just downloaded another one. But like the point is, it's like no matter what situation you're in, whether your parents will be accepting, and you probably know that or not, those comments, they ingrain themselves in you, and they make you make decisions, and they torment you. Yeah. When you're in a household and somebody's just like, you're watching a movie with your parents and your father says this or your mother says that.
Right.
Those things for an LGBTQ child really, really resonate and sit with them and make them choose not to follow through with something they want to do, which is come out and be honest about who they are.
Yep.
Or they become fearful. You know, it's really tragic that is where we are. You know, and that is where, even in this day, we still there, right? But I have faith, and I have, you know, I feel that the newer generation is much more open. Yes. Newer parents, you know, Gen Z. I think that eventually it'll get easier, right? Our main goal is to make it to the point where we don't have to come out, right? And I believe we'll get there. It'll take a couple of decades, but we'll get there. You know. It's unfortunate, but this older generation just needs to go away before that can happen. It's the truth.
It's changes with the times.
So Jay, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend to sit there and watch an entire season of Pose, you and your wife. So that's awesome. And thank you for the update. And now we're at the point where we can actually talk about it. So
no more spoilers.
No more spoilers. So speaking of updates, last week we had talked about a story in the state of Florida where the House of Representatives in that state had passed legislation in where the school, if they had any doubt that the person who was playing for either a boys team or a girls team, if they had any doubts in what sex the individual were, they could be submitted to genitalia inspections. And it was basically as a result of a transgender bill that was making its way through the House, which had that provision in it that it would include an inspection of the individual to determine their sex at birth, to determine whether or not they can play on a team. So we've got an update from the state of Florida. The Senate in that state apparently ran out of time and could not take the bill up. So that means that the bill itself won't make it to the Senate floor and won't be heard in this session, meaning that it's probably dead. It won't make it into a new session once the new session convenes come, you know, the other side of whatever break they have coming up. I'm not too familiar with the laws in the state of Florida, but I know that
I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, like seriously. But a lot of Democrats have hailed this as a win for the trans community there, because it means that this intended bill that was passed in the House doesn't have the muster nor the leg to stand on going forward, because the Senate won't have the time to put it to committee or even to a vote. So
it's amazing.
It's a win. It's a win for the state of Florida. I'm super proud that was the outcome, because you know that this would have been psychologically traumatic for students, and especially transgender students. And you know, we should stop. You need to stop trying to evade the privacy of individuals and let them just be who they want. On that note, the state of Connecticut has also dismissed a lawsuit by students, cis students who sued because they didn't want a transgender woman playing in sports. And so that actual case was going through the court system in the state of Connecticut, and it has been dismissed. So that is no longer an issue in the state of Connecticut either. I'm excited about that.
Yay.
So agreed. That's awesome.
I mean, and also to follow up on that, Montana and North Carolina, two of the dozens of states weighing in on proposals targeting medical care for trans children, will not move forward. In Montana, Senate lawmakers voted this week to indefinitely postpone consideration of House Bill 427. John Fuller, a state representative, the legislation also barred doctors from performing gender-affirming surgery on transgender minors. So there's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And listen, from the beginning, Jen Psaki, which is the White House press secretary, already had said the president is firm in his stance in protecting transgender rights. He did that by executive order, and there's also precedent set in the Supreme Court in a case that was settled there, which says that, you know, this is dead on arrival in most of these cases. And so if these local governments, if these local state governments want to continue to put these bills forward, once they hit the federal circuit, they're going to be struck down.
And also in the same state, another bill was struck down, which included treatments like puberty blockers and hormone therapy. So that also died in the Montana state legislature earlier this year.
Well, big up to the Senate there in the state of Montana. Who knew? Florida, follow suit. All right, so that's all I have for today on the first half, because we have a guest after. So, Nick, you have two amazing, heartwarming stories that we've covered on the show before, but that we've got updates on them. And so I want you to talk about those. Do you want to?
Yeah, I do. But actually, I feel like let's pause on that. And I'm going to throw a curveball.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe start a conversation.
Okay. Well, let me give you a
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
So Brandon Wolf, a survivor of the Pulse nightclub shooting, has insisted that it isn't impossible to solve gun violence. So since the June 2016 shooting in Orlando, which we covered on the show, killing 49 mostly Latinx LGBTQ plus people, there have been 50 mass shootings in the USA,
right,
according to GLAAD. Now, the reason I bring this up is because recently, didn't Biden come out with some type of statement about gun reform?
Well, he actually wants the House and Senate to put on his desk a bill that would ban assault rifles, do sensible, registration, and sort of kind of have like this national list of people. If you're an offender, you shouldn't have access to a weapon. And so what they're saying is, there should be some sort of national database that would record individuals with felonies that shouldn't be having weapons or even having access to them. So yeah, I haven't really been paying attention to politics much.
I know it's been different, right?
In the mainstream, which is crazy, which is why we're probably concentrating a lot on what's happening at the state level. But no, but yes, there is something in the works.
The reality is we keep seeing these things happen,
right?
And I think that we, at a local level, need to start stepping up and doing more, because at the federal level, it's going to take a long time. I mean, when you look at the NRA, you just think about money, and you think about all the senators and representatives that their pockets are just lined by the NRA.
Of course.
And so I say that because there are different programs that are happening. And for example, in New Haven, they recently hosted a gun buyback or a gun buyback event, wherein they would ask people to, between 10 and 3, they asked people to pretty much drop off their guns.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. Shotguns, rifles, pistols, revolvers, anything. And you got different gift cards for the different level of gun that you dropped off. And I'm not sure where these guns ended up, but the fact is, even in New Haven, where we do see gun violence, and recently I feel like we've seen an uptick in gun violence.
There's somebody shot in Connecticut every day. Between Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven, there's at least several shootings every day.
And then we just had a mass shooting in a very small town right down the street from us, Brantford.
That's right.
And seeing the city taking the initiative, whether or not people did it, I'm sure people did go and do it, but whether or not the people that we need to have do it did it, it's the fact that at a local level we're starting to do something, and right. I think that that's what's really important. Well, the
gun trading program has been something that we've had for decades now.
For a long time.
In New Haven, Bridgeport, and Hartford, these are 3 cities that every so often, at least 3 times a year, will do a gun switch program. Usually they'll do them around the holidays. They'll do them around like the Christmas time. They'll do one in July, right when things start to heat up and people are really and
then a lot of time it may be people who are bringing the guns in that have had a spouse that owned the gun and has since passed, and they never knew what to do with it, so they'll bring it in that way. Unless they automatically go in and just hand it into the police department prior to. But you also got to keep in mind, as a responsible gun owners, one gun can run you between $600 on the low end to $1,200, just a handgun.
Right.
So when they do these buyback programs, they give you like $50 or $25 for a $1,200 gun. People that are doing that really aren't people that are interested in keeping guns. It's not always going to curve the illegal activity to the point where they're expecting it to occur, because it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's just the makeup of the beast. I mean,
right. And also when you think about, the credibility of the police departments right now,
yes,
in this particular space and in this time, and having 3 different police officers shoot 3 different people of color in a matter of weeks, while one of them, those police officers, was put away for killing George Floyd. When you think about that dynamic, and thinking about the public trust in police officers and the police departments, you're not going to get a good turnaround if they're saying to you, we're not going to ask any questions, right? Because people are going to think, oh yeah, I'm going to walk in there, they're going to have me on camera, and then I'm fucked because now I'm going to be watched, or they're going to. So
I got to tell you, as because I do carry, concealed carry, I have a permit for it.
I know plenty of people.
And whenever you're pulled over and the cop pulls you over, by the time they get to your vehicle window, they already know you have a concealed carry permit. Because the first thing they ask you is, do you have a weapon on you? And where is it at? So why would they randomly walk to anybody and ask that unless they were already aware of it? Mm-hmm. So, for the most part, they already know who has a concealed carry permit in the state. At least I know in Connecticut they do.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to register.
You're registered. You got to register through the state. You have to register through. You got to go to Troop G in Bridgeport and do your paperwork and get your license and do all that. So you're already in the database.
Yeah.
So a lot of the gun violence that occurs is for people that are unregistered.
Yeah, and have guns illegally.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard because I know it's a tough spot for people that do it the right way, and there are people that collect rifles that are long range rifles. Like I do hunting as well, but I do bow hunting, and I want to do rifle hunting. But to do that, now there's all these laws that are going into effect that are telling me that I can't use the guns that are used for hunting.
Right. I mean, what I would ask for is really not necessarily guns being taken away from people. I don't think that that's necessary, but what I do think is that we really do need some common sense gun reform. I mean, the fact that certain people can get a weapon with their background and or history blows my mind. But the last piece about this article that I want to bring up that I think is really important to highlight is the fact that Brandon goes on to say, we were too gay and too brown for people to care. When we stood up in front of the camera and asked for action from our leaders, they didn't see their kids in us, which literally gives me chills reading.
It's an impactful message.
It is a huge impactful message, because what he is saying is there's not enough representation of people of color, or just in general representation of the LGBTQ plus community in leadership roles. And when that happens, these white men that are making decisions just look right through them and be like, well, it didn't affect my family.
Listen, it's all about numbers. If 25 and 6-year-olds being slaughtered in a school didn't get us the sensible gun control reform that we needed, 49 gay men, women, and allies is not going to do it. Because immediately after, I mean, at the time when Pulse happened in 2016, it was the highest mass shooting that had happened on U.S. soil in any of the 50 states at that time. And shortly after Nevada, Las Vegas happened. which then increased the death toll, I believe, was like 50 plus. So that became the highest mass shooting in U.S. history. And if the killing of 20 innocent, beautiful 5 and 6 year olds didn't do it, that's not going to do it. You know, the NRA has a lot of power, has bought a lot of politicians, and until we remove the vehicle of money from how politics is done and how business is done in our house, in the House of Representatives, things will not change. And I praise, you know, President Biden for having the guts and the balls to stick to his message and say, hey, this is what I promise you guys. If you made me president, this is what I'm going to do. But he knows he's got a very, very high uphill battle to fight.
It's a big fight.
It's a huge fight, because that you're talking about the Second Amendment. You know, we already have a lot of court cases from the Supreme Court that have already affirmed the right to carry. And then the question becomes, well, the right to carry what, right? When this law, when this Constitution was written, people were running around with muskets that took you like 2 minutes to just freaking put a little pellet in it. Now you can fire 500 rounds in less than 5 minutes if you have enough magazines on you and do substantial damage. It's scary.
True.
So, all right. Well, listen, we do have a guest. It is 6:30. Wow. Time flies. 31 minutes so far. So we're going to take a break. We're going to leave you with some music. And when we come back, we have our guest, Ed Stern. So here's some music. We'll be right back.
She was waiting by the back door, said, babe, we gotta leave town. Get your shit, get your suitcase, your dog, your guitar, cause we gotta go now, cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names, yes, they're coming, just the same. Well, I know you don't want to leave your life. You've had some blood and tears, little joy, little strife. But they're coming, well, they're coming down the road, yes, they're coming, truth be told. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. Got a knapsack full of judgment, hypocrisy, and lies. And they're talking so much hateful bullshit, they've begun to gather flies. But they're coming, well, don't look them in the eyes. Yes, they're coming, no surprise. And with so much terror in our past, how are you so surprised it's come to bite you in the ass? Yes, it's coming. Well, it's nipping at your heels. Yes, it's coming for the kill. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land to sell or trade. No, don't forget the whiskey.
Hey, guys.
And don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. So I'll meet you at the station where we can get on that train, head out to the wastelands where we can change our names, cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names. Yes, they're coming just the same. Just the same. Just the same. Just the same.
All right. Well, welcome back, ladies and gents. That, of course, was Wastelands by the incredible Amanda Barrick, an LGBTQ plus artist. Her debut album is available on all the major music streaming services, so make sure that you go check it out because it is awesome. And joining us now, of course, is our guest for the evening. His name is Ed Stern. He is the co-host of Inside Out LGBTQ Plus Talk Radio Show on WPFW 89.3 FM in DC. He is also soon to be a graduate of, a graduate as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. These are big words, by the way, so just bear with me.
I feel you.
He joins us to discuss the importance of finding queer affirming psychiatric care and also to explain why non-affirming is so dangerous for members of our community. So, Ed, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us once again.
Thanks a lot. It's good to be here.
It is amazing. So we can't see you, by the way. I don't know if you had your camera turned off for whatever reason, but
the camera's on.
No.
Yeah, it's probably Tom.
We're on. Anyway, it's great to have you, and it's been a while since you joined us. I'd probably say maybe about a year and a half ago we had you on the show to talk about other endeavors and a cross promotion of our shows, because you have a podcast as well. Well, a radio show that is also being transmitted as a podcast, and but now you're visiting us in a different capacity. So you want to let our listeners know what you're up to?
Sure. Before I do that, I'm bummed that Nick can't see me, but Nick, I have a medical quiz for you.
Hold on, I'm trying to I want to see your face.
Okay.
Let's see if this works.
Let's see if it works. Go for it.
So,
do you want to click your video to see if that's?
Yeah, mine. I turned mine on and off. Do you want to try to ping me back?
Yeah, we're gonna call you back.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do that.
Okay.
All right. So while we do that, Ed is super cool. He's such a great guy. He lives in DC, and we've been meaning to get down there and do our business and
do our business
and visit. Oh. Let's see if this comes through now. There he is.
Hello.
And magically it appears. There he is.
Second time's a charm. There we go. All right. So medical quiz for you, Nick.
Oh God.
Apparently, what do you think is the gayest animal?
What do I think is the gay? Oh. Ooh. Wow. I'm torn between penguin and dolphin.
I will say,
that's
primates.
where I would have been too. But I was reading something from PETA out in the UK, and I'm going to read this to you. Studies show that gay sex among giraffes makes up over 90% of all observed sexual activity in those animals.
Wow.
Meaning giraffes engage in much more same-sex loving than do opposite-sex loving. Male giraffes are especially interested in each other. They are known to rub their necks along each other's body and spend many hours courting and caressing their potential partner. Simply put, giraffes are big on homosexuality and foreplay.
That sounds like Nick under the dick doc.
Maybe.
They're bromos. They're bromos.
So it's funny you bring that up. That is so interesting because I did not know that. But why is it that you brought that up? How did we meet?
Yeah. So I have been a fan of your podcast for some time.
Sorry about that.
I have been the co-host of WPFW 89.3's Inside Out LGBT Collective, which is a public radio show here in the DC area. And one week you had mentioned something. We air on Tuesdays. You guys air on Mondays. I was listening to you on Monday because I'm a Patreon supporter. You said something about
Freezing.
He froze. It's okay.
But when you're doing live radio, as you guys know, sometimes you have to be careful when you ramble.
Sorry, you just froze. Can you go back a little bit? You completely froze. You were like,
dang it. I said, sometimes you have to be careful when you ramble. But I remembered you saying something the day before about penguins, and I referenced you on the show. And I was like, I got to send this clip to my, to my new friend who doesn't know me called Nick.
And I was like, oh my God, I got to stop talking about gay animals. Now other people are talking about me.
That's okay. It's
but it has not stopped me at all.
No, why should it? And then I had you guys on my show, and I think the fun we had was, so my show is FCC regulated, so
Right.
I have to be careful with what I say.
So when you had us on your show, you gave us a list of 7 words that we could not say on terrestrial radio. So why don't you tell us what those words are?
I think
I was hoping you would ask me that, Tom. So we can't say shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Those are the 7 words we cannot say because, we're FCC regulated.
Can you say it one more time?
Sure. Shit, piss, fuck, cock, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits.
It was so funny because during that time when we were on your show, I remember I would say something, but can I say that? Like throughout the entire show.
I think that was all 3 of us.
I had my engineer on the dump button because I said, you got to be careful of these guys.
So
You're not wrong.
So I want you to take a moment and really focus on his background and tell me what you see.
I see the unicorn.
Dookie!
That's the first thing I saw.
We have ours way up there. He's
Yep,
over
yep.
over the TV.
And I have
there.
to admit, all the times that I've watched your show, I'd never noticed Dookie was up there. And then we were checking audio earlier with Tom, and he had a camera angle that basically I saw him from lower all the way on up, and I saw Dookie basically waving at me, and I was like, ooh, we're dual Dookies.
Oh yeah, Dookie's our mascot.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I love the fact that they have a rainbow butt plug, and which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
does.
Dookie has become
I got to pull it down now because he's never seen it.
oh my God.
I'm a
Jay,
Dookie version.
So Dookie,
Yeah, hold on. Let me-
so I do, I'm finishing up my qualifications to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse for a very, very long time. And so, compliments of COVID, I've been doing most of my therapy and medication visits here in my home office. And when I deal a lot with 14 to 24-year-old, queer kids, and they're always like, what's that behind you? And I'm like, wait a minute. And I pull Dookie down, and, we drop his little rainbow turd, and they're like, oh my God.
It's like the best promotional thing ever that
That's it.
they did over at Squatty Potty.
Did you ever have Bobby Edwards on the show?
No, I never had Bobby Edwards on my show. No.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to make that happen for you because that was how Dookie came about in the GayTalk studios.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Oh, no. Like I said, big fan. So I remember the entire conversation on your end. And of course, every bathroom in my house has a Squatty Potty. And, I also have a, brain fart. The bidet.
Hello Tushy.
Oh.
Hello, Tushy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, please make
And-
sure that you go to hellotushy.com.
Yes.
Don't do tushy.com
No.
because you will get a big surprise in your face.
You're not wrong.
It's a porn site.
Yes, it is.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're expecting to see a bidet and you come across a big, humongous, juicy, veiny,
Okay.
what I think is uncut penis, then don't say I didn't warn you.
Wait, let me write this down. No,
So Ed, interestingly enough, you've been going through certification, right? You're going through school to get certified as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. You're about to graduate. How does that feel?
that is exactly how it feels.
Yeah.
I'm 19 days away from completing my program, so I'm very excited about that. It's been a long, long time, made even longer compliments of COVID, but I'm happy to be done. And I'm also very excited about the opportunity to be able to help our community, when I'm up and running in my practice.
Speaking of COVID, before we jump into, the fact that you're here and what we want to talk about, how have you been functioning during this past year? How have you been affected, the show, so on and so forth? How's it been for you?
So it's been interesting. So our radio show, we went very virtual. Very few people are allowed in the physical studio. We virtually connect in to do our shows, which has been interesting, much like what you guys are doing, as well. I live out in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., about 20 minutes from downtown. And because of COVID and because of my job as a nurse and in the height of COVID, I actually had the opportunity to relocate to downtown D.C., ironically, to be safer, to be closer to work, a bunch of other things. What was supposed to be 30 to 60 days ended up being almost 8 months, unfortunately. But where I thought I was going to have more peace and quiet turned out to be smack dab in the middle of where the BLM movement was. So one day I'm doing group therapy virtually from this temporary space while tear gas was wafting through through the sliding glass door of this condo that I was in and other things like that. So it's been a very interesting, very stress-filled year for myself as well as for my patients.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it just shows you the tenacity and the strength of our community, right? We find ways.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what happens. We always find a way to persevere because we have to. We have no choice, right? We've been doing this for eons, fighting for our rights. And so we always find a way to adapt.
Well, and you guys were talking about Potter's Field, before the break. See, I do listen. And I grew up in New York City. I was an EMT working in Newark, New Jersey, in the 80s. So, those people that unfortunately were interred in Potter's Field, some were my patients, some were my friends. If we've endured through that, we're enduring through many other things, all this legislation that you guys were talking about, throughout the country. And these are big challenges for our community across the nation. And of course, to sort of bridge it to, the topic we're going to talk about, a lot of us need psychiatric care, right? Better living through Prozac, right? Because you want time to fly, right, Tom?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really the challenge. And I think the challenge we have is it's hard enough to find a doctor who you can, right? Not everybody's Dr. G. You can't walk into a doctor and go, hey, can you look at my butthole? It hurts.
Right.
That's a really difficult thing to do. But when you're dealing with psychiatric care or psychological care, you are much more exposed than you could ever be bending over in Dr. G's office. Right. One is a very physical sense of exposure with some emotional connection. But when you're sitting down talking to a psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist, you are, in order for you to get the help, you really have to let, since we're talking about the 80s, that great 80s term of, opening the kimono, you really have to expose yourself to so much. And the challenge really is finding somebody who you can feel comfortable with talking about your lifestyle openly. And understanding that they actually are going to be there, that they're going to be affirming, and they can look at you and say, classic teenager situation, right? Parents bring the kid in because the kid's anxious, the kid's behavior has changed, the kid's not feeling comfortable in their own skin. Can they sit down with a therapist and, say, I think I'm gay and I don't know how to talk to my parents, or the parents are bringing them in because they've said they're gay and clearly we have to, give them therapy in order to help their problem.
So before we get into that conversation about therapy, psychiatric help, etc., there's a lot of misconceptions that weigh around the whole topic and the whole genre of care. Can you talk a little bit about the misconceptions before we move into one where you can find queer affirming support? A little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really, I think before you hit the misconception, I think it's the stigma.
Right.
Right. Is right. So I call it double stigma, because what we have is we have the stigma of, the world of psychiatry. It's gotten a bad rap. Psychology, psychiatry, behavioral health in general has gotten a bad rep. And then we have the stigma of being part of the LGBTQ community. So, that's challenging. And the mental health community as a whole, people's mental impressions of this are things like, one flew over a cuckoo's nest, or, we're going to medicate you until you're numb. We're going to medicate you until your dick doesn't work, and that's going to fix your depression. We're going to, you're going to tell us all your secrets, and we're going to do things to use that against you. I mean, this is sort of the old thought process, right? The trans community probably having the worst experience in this world, because, it wasn't, from a historical perspective of psychiatry, it wasn't long ago that we saw being queer or being trans as a mental illness.
Yeah.
Thankfully it's long enough ago, but in the grand scheme of things, that's still a problem. And we're still somewhat stuck in that world. There are still people out there. I give you a kind of like a great example. So there is a online text-based kind of therapy organization called Pride Counseling. You can pay a monthly fee, and basically all the free texts you want to a therapist, you can do video, you can do everything else. It's a form of receiving therapy and support for a cost. They are actually owned by the same corporation, big corporation. They are owned by the same corporation that does Christian counseling. That would be like saying Grindr and Christian Singles are owned by the same company.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
You guys know what Grindr is, right?
No.
What is that?
Oh, what is that?
Are you gay?
It's a hoagie. No.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I want two of those.
Yeah, me. But here's a company that, large corporation that's profiting off of one group that really puts a lot of hate on us. Yeah. And that adds to the stigma, I think. It makes things very uncomfortable for people when they find these things out. Or an individual therapist whose personal faith, or an individual psychiatrist or psych nurse practitioner whose individual faith doesn't align with us. You guys were talking about, you talked about multiple shows, but just earlier today, right? Some of this legislation about gender affirming care, and how people like myself, if I provide gender affirming care in some states, if these legislations make it through, if I give a teenager information about, say, hormone blockers, or talk about affirming care, how it could be seen as a felony. I mean, this is that middle ground that we're really stuck with. So it could be faith, it could be something else. The stories I hear, I've done my best over the past couple of years that I've been studying, and of course many years that, as a queer cis male working in the industry as a nurse, we have ethics rules that preclude us from putting our personal belief before the patient, but that doesn't always work.
Right.
And
Never does.
one of my clinical rotations here in the DC area, I was completely befuddled by the fact that the the mental health professional I was working with believes in purposefully misgendering trans youth. A young man came out to me as bi. He was, how old was he? 15 years old. He came out as bi, and the person I was doing my clinical rotation, hey, he's too young. He's confused. He doesn't know. right? But yet he openly positions himself as somebody who is comfortable with the LGBTQ community. And that's where the damage happens.
So that actually leads me into so there are a lot of kids that I'm sure you'll see where parents will bring them to you, right? And they'll say, we think this, or my child has said this, I want you to fix them.
Fix it, yeah.
How do you approach something like that?
You don't fix it.
Obviously, yeah.
You know, so it's an interesting challenge, right? And the beautiful thing is that in many states, most states actually, the law precludes me from disclosing to the parent the conversation I've had with the child. Each state, the age is a little bit different, so it gets a little bit more complicated. But the only time I'm obligated to disclose by law would be if they had threatened self-harm or to harm somebody else. So sometimes you can use the law in your favor. And so you sit down with the parents and the child. Parents say, you know, here's what I want you to fix my child. They say they're gay. They just can't possibly be gay. They play football. Right, Nick? You know, right? Oh my God, they
Right,
play
Nick?
football.
We're literally reliving my childhood right
me
now.
too. Me too. I mean, it's no secret that I didn't come out until about 7 or 8 years ago. Always been pan, was married. My wife was aware of my past. I was faithful to her while we were married, but I worked in a profession for most of my life where I was fearful for my life if I came out. So it was, it's these kinds of challenges that we face. But here's the kid. The kid's 15, whatever years old. Parents say he can't be gay. He's a football player. He's a big star on the football field. You need to talk to him. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now time for me to, have some private time with your son. Parents walk out of the room. So then it's like, what do you think? Right. And then to have that therapeutic conversation with the child, have a conversation and then help them to manage it, doing all sorts of things, assuring their safety. Right. That's a big thing we have to do. Are you safe at home? If you are gay and out now, are you fearful for being homeless? Are you worried about, your safety? Are you worried something's going to happen? What's your plan if parents do X, Y, or Z? And those kinds of things. That's usually kind of where we start because safety's, at the utmost. And then the conversation is, okay, so in these therapeutic sessions, what can I help you with?
I think that's amazing. And when I saw it, when I decided to follow through and see a therapist, and I was already in my mid-30s, because I still, even though I knew I was attracted to both, there's still that question as what if, right?
Yeah.
So I did seek therapy. For me, the therapist that I had wasn't really versed in bisexuality. So, and I explained what was happening, and his immediate reaction was like, "Oh, you're gay. Don't worry about it. You're gay." And I'm like,
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah, you're lying to yourself. You just got to move on with it. So, which was a little harder for me to figure out where I was at. It took me 3 years. I literally separated from my wife for 3 years to figure out where the hell I was at. Because I didn't know.
I remember I had to go through some of that time with him. He actually lived with me for
I lived with
some of that.
I lived with Tom for some time. He took me in. So
Absolutely,
it's
Jay.
difficult.
And I think that's, you make a very valid point. I think that's the problem. For me, I was a teenager coming to grips in the late 70s, early 80s, with my sexuality. It was a very, very different time. There wasn't a lot of affirming stuff. I had my fair share of problems. I had been sexually traumatized much earlier. The classic summer camp counselors, school teachers, you know,
The
a
stuff
number
you
of
hear in the
different times.
store, in the news, and in the storybooks.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I grew up for a large part of my life as a young man thinking that I'm having these thoughts about guys
Because of
because of
yeah.
what happened to me, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be what it is, because it's just not right. And the very first time as a patient, a psychiatrist said to me, "You realize you're not the one who needs to be here." You know, just the oh my God,
Right.
you know, that wild revelation. And then, you know, that's the point when the healing can begin.
Yeah.
There's a phenomenal therapist down on the other coast, down in the Pasadena, California area. I love his approach. He specializes with LGBT teens. He helps them come out with their family. And I mean, I love his approach and the way he focuses on things. He and I are very much, you know, in sync with how we think things. He does therapy. I do some therapy and medication management, but beyond that, it's, you know, it's a matter of opening the door, starting the conversation, helping these kids out, and making it possible for them to, you know, to feel better about themselves, to heal, you know, and to address things.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's the challenge. And so for me, for somebody with medication management, you know, Tom, if you may be joking, you may actually be on Prozac. I don't know.
I put it in his drink. So.
Yeah. So.
Is that
Prozac and beer.
MDMA or Prozac that you're putting in his drink?
It depends on what he needs that week, that day.
Depends how crazy and you know, cha-cha I get.
But I mean, I think the point is that, you know, being able to sit down with somebody and having that therapeutic conversation and being able to treat them as the individual that they are, both medically, for me with medications, therapeutically with therapeutic conversation, right? We know, I mean, I know you guys have talked about the Trevor Project a bunch of times on the show, right? We know that people who are affirmed by at least one other person dramatically reduces the risk of suicide.
Yes.
You know, so many other things. It's acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's important. And the challenge we face when we're walking into a therapist's office or a psychiatrist's office or a psychiatric nurse practitioner's office like myself is, you know, how much of our community do they understand?
Right.
How much of what we deal with do they get? If I said grinder, would they go, okay? Or, you know, what, you know, the culture, I may not personally, you know, feel the same way about it, but if the culture is, you know, I'm a little disappointed that here in the DC area, compliments of COVID, our Eagle closed.
Right.
You know, but for somebody to say, well, you know, I mean, I used to go to the Eagle, and for somebody to go, okay, you know, and in their head automatically, you know, put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And some, you know, or for a you know, somebody who's in the part of the trans community, not to have to explain the journey that they've gone through in the bigger sense. We want them to feel comfortable explaining the journey that they personally have gone through, not have to educate the therapist or the psychiatrist or the psychiatric nurse practitioner,
Right.
or jump over hurdles of how they, you know, how they have to think and, you know, educate and then overcome personal hurdles. I talked to a bunch of my peers recently in a networking group, and we were talking about somebody who was acting like they were drugged. They swear they didn't take drugs. Their drug test came back positive. And they were like, well, they're just lying to me. And I said, no, wait a second. What was it they were doing? And they explained it. And I looked at these, there's a bunch of suburban women basically. And, you know, I said, well, you know, it wouldn't surprise me based on the sex and everything that you were describing, that they were either roofied with the drug or somebody sprinkled the drug on their penis, and then they had either oral or anal sex, and that's how they ingested the drug. And so this person probably didn't even know they were drugged.
Right.
You know, and obviously a room full of suburban women, as professional as they are, being able to go, what?
Right.
And so getting our community, not having to explain the terminology, being absolutely affirmed, knowing that you can walk into a bathroom and be safe, whatever the bathroom is that you decide. I mean, these are key critical things, because the alternative is you're exposing yourself and you can't feel comfortable at a certain point. You need to be able to walk in, just like you're able to walk into somebody like Dr. G. One of these days, I want to open up an office, next to Dr. G. We can call it Dr. G and E. And I'll do the psychiatry, he'll do the buttholes, and we'll basically have head to tail.
Yeah.
Hello.
That would be amazing.
So let me ask you a question, Ed. So you mentioned, like, for example, if you mention certain words, people would automatically know that, this person knows of my community. I mean, we can talk about keywords or things that you can use to identify whether or not your practitioner is versed in your community, or if they're part of the community, or if they're affirming. Because I mean, if I walked into your office and you mentioned the word grinder, I'm like, we're going balls deep. I mean, this is going to be a deep session, right? Because I would automatically know. If you know what grinder is, you are either part of the community or you are very well versed in the community. Right. So what are certain things that patients can do looking for psychiatric help that they can do to identify practitioners that are affirming, aside from going to a website of registered affirming practitioners?
Right. And so I'm going to take that backwards. So let's talk about the websites. So in past shows, you've mentioned one, which is glma.org.
Right.
And I am a member. They are a great organization, but the important thing to understand about their directory is it's the individual in that organization adding themselves to the directory.
And they're not vetted.
There's no vetting.
Interesting.
It's the same. So like in the psychology and psychiatry world, right? There's a commercial website called Psychology Today, where many of us advertise. And I can say, that I can work with gay, lesbian, bi, etc. But again, not vetted. There are some websites. There used to be a website out there called Rad Remedy. They've been down, unfortunately, for months. So I'm hoping they come back. But there's another one that's actually designed more specifically for the trans community. That's called TransWin, TRANS Win. And they are actually hosted by an organization I have a great deal of respect for here in the DC area called DCATS. DC Area Trans Masculine Society. They are dcats.org. And what's wonderful about their website, I give Jameson, the executive director there, a lot of credit. Individuals can rate them. So it's in essence, it's the Google reviews for the queer community for medical professionals.
Like a Yelp.
Very, very well thought out. Awesome. So really the best thing to do is your own personal network. And that, Tom, goes to kind of what you were talking about with, you need that trusted friend. You don't necessarily have to get into, the deep conversation about why you're looking for somebody, but you want to, you need to reach out to your network, whether that's a Facebook group or personal close friends, and go, who are you guys using? And if you don't have that, or you can't trust that, you have to just start calling around, and just because somebody throws a rainbow on their webpage doesn't mean that they are going to be able to support and affirm the individual that you are. It gets you closer, right? I'm not saying my peers are not ethical,
right?
But there's a difference between saying, I'm here for you and I won't judge you, versus, I'm here for you, I don't judge, and I truly understand, and or may actually even be part of the community.
And as a practitioner, I mean, it is fairly common for you to see somebody one time and they're like, this isn't the right fit. I feel like that is something that people need to embrace, right? If you have an initial meeting with somebody and you're uncomfortable, there are other people out there.
Yep, absolutely. There are, now granted, it's hard. partly because we have this thing called COVID that a lot of people are, relying more on mental health. Do they take your insurance? Do they not take your insurance? I mean, there's some factors to play, but some people will do a free 10-minute phone consult, just like a little meet or greet. You can request a shorter appointment over the phone or by video or in person and say, I really just want to get to know the individual.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask the staff, and say, hey, I'm fill in the blank here, right? I'm a poly pan cis male. How can Dr. So-and-so or nurse practitioner so-and-so help me? And if that staff person goes,
hang up,
because we do,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, thank you.
Right.
And again, I think it's important to say it's not necessarily that others can't be supportive, right? I mean, we are professionals. We are licensed. We are, we've gone through a lot of training. But when you're getting to meet and get to know this new person who you're going to open up to and talk about the deepest, darkest corners of your life with, you need to be comfortable with that individual. And if something in the back of your head is saying, I don't think this is right for me, then you need to think about what the alternatives are.
Yeah.
And and seek those out. If you're in crisis, being in crisis is different than being, somebody who wants to work on a whole lot of stuff. And I mean, I could be straight and I could prescribe Prozac, but wouldn't it be great to feel more comfortable to walk in the room and say, hey, Ed, this is what's going on in my life. I was dating this guy. He came in and, we decided to stop using condoms, and now I have HIV and it's really freaking me out. And for that individual that you're working with to be able to support you, and not say what somebody said to a patient of mine recently was, wow, that's a really dangerous diagnosis.
Right.
So, I mean, we're in 2021, and actually being HIV positive is not a dangerous diagnosis anymore. I mean, if managed correctly, you can live a long and healthy life.
And I think that's the key, Tom, is being keenly aware of what that means, because it is a dangerous diagnosis. It's as bad as diabetes. It's as bad as hypertension. If you don't manage it,
correct.
Key, right? But there's also, and I think this is where being part of our community is beneficial. So you have the person who goes, wow, or the other person who goes, oh, we can work with this. Let's look at the science, and it's not that big a deal, right? That's that middle of the road that I hope most of my peers are in. But then there's the peer who can turn around and say, okay, let's talk about what this really means, right? So let's talk about the stigma. What does this mean now when you're on Grindr and you're going to disclose that you're HIV positive? What does U equal U mean? And, have you found a good infectious disease doctor? How are they supporting you? Right. Taking it to, right. So you've got the completely worthless, the majority of our population that's going to be able to support your mental need, but not completely internalize it. And then you have, I was going to say cream of the crop, but that makes me sound arrogant, but then you have the people that truly get and or are part of our community and can be very supportive, offer the right information, the right choice, in my case, the right medication to help.
Well, see, that's important though, because for me, knowing that the person that I go seek care with, it can personally identify with some of the choices I make as a gay man, makes it comfortable for me to be able to just openly come out and say, hey, this happened to me, and not feel judgment, which is why I'm very comfortable, for example, talking to Dr. Evan Goldstein. And I can tell you that if I went into his office tomorrow and I said, hey, Dr. G, I have something, growing out of my ass, can you check it out? I would do it without reservation, because I trust that he knows what my experience is like, given the work that he's doing. Right.
Yeah. And I think absolutely. And going to going to another colorectal surgeon who gets it. I mean, I've heard Dr. G say this too, right? They're going to provide care, but are they going to provide care completely understanding and keeping in mind how our community works, how we use, in Dr. G's case, how we use our anus, and how we, how prostate stimulation works, and what the care is that's gonna change that. The same is with me. If I had a patient sit down and talk to me about some stuff that happened to them in the context of, well, I was kind of feeling like in the mood to, be filled by a couple of guys. You kind of know where that conversation went, right? And then something happened that triggered a past trauma based on what one of the people that night said to him. And, to be able to put those pieces together without having to go, wait, what? Is kind of that, that best possible care that you can get. It's not available from everybody. Certainly, right. It's not available, unfortunately, everywhere in this country. And that's why it's hard and important for your listening audience, for our entire community, to do the best that they can.
Right.
And when you're in places like, there are places in Florida that you could throw a stick and find a queer therapist or psychiatrist, I'm sure. But at the same point, Florida's trying to torture our community.
Can't you throw a stick in Florida and still find a plastic surgeon in that corner? So
that's true too.
And you have to be
bigger
careful.
boobs,
You have to be really careful about that because you could go to someone who claims they're legitimately aware of the LGBT community, and the minute you show them or tell them your issue, they steer you in the whole wrong direction. And I think it can be very dangerous as well.
Right. I completely, and that's that's a phenomenal point, Jay.
Yeah.
This therapist that I did some of my clinical rotation with one day said to me, that I needed to not dress as gay as I was dressing.
Fuck you. I'm sorry.
And he was the same person who said to me that he's very supportive of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I think what's important too is I just realized I was seeing the picture of me in the video. This is the fucking shirt I was wearing the day he told me I dressed too gay.
Yeah, that's definitely gay.
Well,
is this not like
gay.
But it's gorgeous,
girl.
It's not gay. It's a polo.
It's a pink Lacoste polo, for crying out loud. It's yuppie gay, but it's not No. I mean, Tubbs and Crockett wore these on,
Miami Vice.
On Miami Vice, so, that just made me sound really old. But
I used to love Miami Vice.
I wanted to touch on two more things before we either wrap up or these guys take it away. So, the last one is going to be COVID's impact on our community and on, psychiatric needs in general. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because we all have these people in our lives that are afraid of therapy. We know that it would benefit them. How do you pitch something to somebody who's so reluctant when you know that it would be so good for them to try?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that it's a matter of being that supportive friend. That's really the first place to start. It's sitting down. It's not having the conversation in a bar. It's not having the conversation by text. It's not, these are the kinds of conversations that, hey, here's my thought, especially if you've had a lived experience and said, look, this is what therapy did for me, right? This is what a psychiatrist did for me. Now that I'm on Prozac, time flies. I'm less depressed. Whatever those things are, giving them that life experience.
You guys are crucifying me for using that line.
You say it all the time.
You say it all the time. Yeah, exactly. It's also fine. I mean, Prozac, Lexapro, Prestique. I mean, you name it. I'll prescribe it. We'll get you taken care of. But I mean, these are the things. I think it's a matter of really. This is the time that you have to have the heart to heart. And True. If it's not a personal lived experience for you, share a lived experience with somebody else that because this is a tough obstacle, especially if they've lived the stigma in the past. gay conversion camp, kinds of stuff, or I've heard that this, X happened to Y or whatever, and then maybe play this podcast for them.
Oh, they'll certainly learn a lot from our shows, which are crazy.
To answer the other question about COVID and how it's impacted us, I think, it's interesting. So there's some interesting data. So the Kaiser Family Foundation is one big research group, and what I found that they had some numbers that what's fascinating is that LGBT folks are more likely to be impacted by with their jobs than non-LGBT complements of COVID. That 3/4 of the people they surveyed that identified as LGBT were impacted by stress related to COVID, whereas only about 50% of non-LGBT. And when you look at other organizations and their numbers, what I think this is my best educated guess based on the data that I looked at, is that we're already a stressed community. And then if you took an LGBTQ person of color and then add COVID, right, they're going to skew even higher based on the data that's out there.
Right.
And so I think that's what we're seeing is, I know I've heard your show say it. I've said it on my show before as well, right? The LGBT community is really nothing more than an amalgam, or of all of the other people that make up this country, different shapes, different colors, different sizes, etc. And so you may have a double whammy of the issue. A Black queer individual is going to have a higher probability of issues with so many things than, a cis hetero person, cis white hetero person. So we're seeing some higher impact, but what's good is the numbers that we're seeing for vaccination track more with ethnicity and social background than with being part of the queer community, which is good. So in other words, we're not seeing the queer community being left out. What's terrible in this country, and President Biden and others are trying to work on, is that we still see a higher percentage of white people in this country being vaccinated than minorities, people of color, however you want to divide the group out. They are LGBTQ people typically are more willing to get vaccinated, which I think is good. So one study, I think it was, I'm trying to remember who did it, but I think it was the Human Rights Campaign that reported on it. So if you had a Black, and don't quote me completely on this, but I think it was, if you had a Black queer individual, they were just as likely as any other Black individual, or more likely than than their non-queer counterpart to want to get vaccinated.
Right.
Access is a totally different story, of course.
Right. And not to mention that during the pandemic, you've seen a lot of, especially gender nonconforming, transgender men, women who were confined to their homes with people who were not affirming to their lives, to who they are as a person. And so that also brought the stress level to extraordinary.
Oh my God. Yeah. I had an
heights.
18-year-old in a group therapy with trans people that I was fortunate to participate in as a guest. Young 18-year-old trans man who used to attend therapy and his group therapy sessions in a closet in his home. Ironic and sad at the same time, right? So this poor young man was back in the closet literally because he couldn't be anywhere in the house. He had to close his bedroom door and then step in the closet because it was the only safe place he could go to participate in the therapy sessions, where he was reasonably confident that he could talk freely about his family that was also in the same house.
Wow.
And that's scary. That's a scary
Oh,
part.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
The need to go into a closet. Here we are fighting all our lives to come out of the closet. And you have to go into a closet to have a session with your therapist that's going to help you deal with your homophobic family.
Literally, and literally being forced back in the closet, as opposed to our more often figurative statement. Yeah.
Not to take away from that story because it is very impactful, but
Go for it.
It's funny that you say that because I have a very close friend who's a mother, and during COVID, everybody moved home. And I called her one time just to check in and talk and say hi, and she was like, I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I'm in the closet. I was like, what? She was like, I'm in the closet. I'm literally, it's my only safe space. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, they're taking over the house again. Like, the house is just, I have no space for me. And I looked at her, I was on the phone with her, and I was like, well, how about we do this now? From now on, you're not in the closet. It can be your safe space, but we're going to call it your liberated space.
That's wonderful.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I will admit that I'm renting a house, and the owner of the house is it's a queer couple, and the house has is obviously very well loved by them, and they designed this massive closet that for one single queer guy who doesn't necessarily address the part, it's huge. And because I needed a quiet space to concentrate and study and read, I put one of those like little bouncy IKEA chairs in there. I don't even know what it's called. It's something, whatever IKEA calls it.
Yeah.
But and I put an entire chair with a little chaise with a little ottoman for my feet in there, so that I can read in peace in the least stimulating place in my house, so I don't have any distractions, compliments of ADHD. And I'm like, I sat in there, and I'm like, I'm fucking back in the closet. Oh my God. It took me 50 years to come out of the goddamn closet, and only 7 to shove me back in. That's
and
pretty
literally
impressive.
like install a chair.
Yeah. You have
At least you made it comfortable this time.
a pulling
Yeah,
chair
great.
is what it's called. The pulling chair.
Thank you. Did you just Google that?
I sure did.
Oh my God.
I had one of those
Available
chairs.
from
I broke it.
IKEA.com. Compliments of Tom. There you go.
I had one of those. I sat on it and broke it.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too.
I mean,
my,
years
my
after.
COVID weight is scaring me.
Yeah.
Girl, I just started a new job, and I'm like, I can't fit into anything. I can't. I feel you. COVID weight is a thing.
Congratulations, by the way, on the job.
I know.
Sounds very exciting.
Thanks.
She's a mess.
I'm coming up there at some point. I want to see this theater. I want to see it in action.
Well, hopefully I'm still there.
I also want to be drinking with you guys, but that's a separate conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once everything settles down, she's
it
fully
happen.
vaxxed. You're fully vaxxed.
I'm vaxxed.
I'm halfy vaxxed. So
Okay.
I get mine on Friday. So I have an appointment with my, what do you call your eye doctor?
Optometrist?
I was going to say oncologist. I'm like, no, that's not
You
it.
probably have one of those too.
Optometrist. So
You gonna go see my girl?
I'm gonna go see. Well, it was a guy that answered, and I'm like, "What's your name?"
He's hot as fuck.
Thank you. See, he
Yes.
sounded hot.
I got you. I got you.
So anyway, I'm gonna go see the optometrist to have my eyes checked, because lately everything is blurry for me. Nearsightedness is a little like weird, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting old now. I need glasses.
Comes with your 40s. Look.
Yep.
Me
Here you
too.
go.
These are 2 weeks old.
Lord
Here,
have
wait,
mercy.
Tom. If I do this, is it any better?
Oh my
Same
god!
thing as mine.
I can see PsychNP cast like clearly. I can see clearly now.
Yep.
The rain is gone. No, but I'm gonna go
I can
see.
see all obstacles in my way.
You
Yeah.
got everybody
There you go.
singing.
So no, but I'm gonna go see an optometrist, get my eyes checked, and probably I am gonna need glasses. And then on Friday, I get my COVID shot, the second one, second Pfizer shot, and then that means Saturday I'm going to be dizzy, going crazy with my new glasses if I get some, and also going through some of the symptoms of the expected symptoms of the second shot. So it'll be interesting.
So it'll be like a hangover.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's perfect without all the work.
So
no, I think because remember our original plan after you guys aired on my show. By the way, PsychNP Cast, thank you. It's a podcast that I've actually started for the PsychNP community. That's why that's there. But so originally, remember when you guys had you guys on my show, we had this big theoretical plan that we were going to do something live during the election. And I had talked to you guys about coming down here.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to get Jess to come down. We were going to have a big ass DC blowout party, stand outside the White House. We were going to do a live simulcast. I mean, I was all pumped for that. And then fuck COVID.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But at least the election turned out the way we all wanted.
Yeah.
Thankfully. And we have 2024 to look forward to. I mean, it's like clockwork. In another 13 months, it's going to be another election cycle all over again. I mean, we've got the midterms coming up for the 2022, the 2024, main elections for next president. It's going to be crazy. So,
maybe what we just need to do is we all need to show up at Jess's house.
Pretty much. It's either that or go to that train station with that big, long escalator going all the way down. The one that you said, if you fall, you die.
Oh, my God.
What train station is that?
The DC Metro station has some of the longest escalators in all over the place. They're actually getting ready to replace all, what did I hear on the news this morning? All 137. It's going to take years, of course.
It was the one coming up from DuPont into DuPont Circle.
There,
I thought I was going to die.
Nick said he could go
there's longer
hang gliding
ones than that one. But yeah, it's it's part of the DC experience. Yeah.
Wow.
Just don't stumble.
Yeah, no, I'm literally like I was on it and I felt like I don't know if anybody else has a fear of heights, but like, do you ever watch those Facebook videos where they're like hanging on a cliff, like in a thing, and you just get this like body shaking feeling, like almost like your gut wrenching? That's how I got on this escalator. Halfway up, I was like, oh my God. I was with, actually at the time, an old therapist of mine who is now a very good friend, Mike. And I'm like,
oh, I know Mike. No, just kidding.
I'm like, Fra, I call him Fra. I'm like, Fra, you gotta hold me. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm freaking out right now. This thing is really high.
It's freaking crazy. Yeah, I've
You're
never
not the
been
only
in the
person
metro.
who's ever said that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you said something about like I could have hang glided my way down there.
Yeah, most likely.
So Gravadorito, let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
but it's good. You know what? If you walk it, it's really, really good for the glutes.
Just don't use the escalator.
That's why. Yeah. That's why I'm 57 and I still have good calves and glutes.
Well, that always works. That's a good
moving.
thing. That's a good thing.
That's right.
So
Ed, it helps me when I used to go to the Eagle. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, hopefully, are there any plans to open it back up?
I know that they auctioned off the rights to the name. It's a big bummer. It's we lost a few parts of our history around here. Thankfully, there's still a couple of good places to go.
Is the Green Lantern
I figure by
still
2025 we should be safe to go back to them.
Is the Green Lantern still there?
Last I heard, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've had
karaoke there.
some phenomenal experiences with the Green Lantern.
Yeah. We had Chris running around with no shirt.
Big surprise.
We were singing karaoke.
That's overdressed at the Lantern.
Yeah, pretty much. But we had a good time. And then we, of course, went into DuPont Circle and made our rounds through all of the other smaller bars. Like, is it JR's?
JR's, yeah.
Yeah, because there's one in Dallas, too, so I get confused. And then we went and had dinner. It's a fun time.
Well, next time you guys come on down, we'll hit what's left. A Great Bear Bar is Uproar.
Take me there.
My personal favorite. Yeah,
I think I went there.
So.
Wait,
did you go?
That's closer to like New Jersey Avenue by where we stayed at the Hyatt for MAL. It's like we took a cab there, and it's you got to go up these stairs, second floor. A little Asian lady owns it.
Yeah, Tammy.
Yeah.
Tom's memory is impressive sometimes.
Yeah. I love her.
Shit, he remembers.
She was hilarious. So the time I went there, I remember we left. We were like, you know what? I'm so tired of being around all these shady ass crazy people in this hotel. Can we just go somewhere else to have drinks tonight, please? And so we ended up going to Uproar, and the moment we walk in, Tammy's like at the top of this, says hello, come up. She brings us to where the buffet is. Of course, she saw Jaime. She's like, beast, eat. And
was it Jaime?
Yeah. No, it was Jaime. It was Jaime.
Tommy wasn't bearing it up then.
No. I had met someone at MAL who went to that bar, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna eat just in case something happens.
Oh yeah,
good.
She wanted to stay ready for the night.
So I did not participate in the buffet. But then we went to the third floor.
You were the buffet later on.
Yeah, thank you. I was.
She was the full spread.
And then I went all the way up to the third floor, and there was a pretty decent sized roof covered patio and dance floor, and we were dancing our asses off up there. It was a cute bar. The next time we go, we have to go to Uproar.
Fleece invite.
Oh, you'll go.
We'll go as a
team, the GayTalk team.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. And I'll be more than happy to be your DC ambassador. Don't worry.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes.
So Ed, listen, I don't want to keep you. I know that we have to wrap up the show, but I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us and give us some amazing, important information that I think is relevant for the community. And before we say sayonara, I need you to please let our listeners know where they can find you if they need to. If you're providing professional services at this point and you would like someone who can reach out to you for that, sell yourself away.
I am available on most social media as Ed Stern, EDSTERN RN. So you can find me on Twitter there, Insta there as well, even my very limited TikTok lifestyle there. So that's the easiest way to find me. And if you're looking for some help trying to figure out how to suss people out and figure out what they are, you can definitely message me on those platforms. You could also go to my personal website, which is eStern, ESTERN, like I can freaking spell my own name, .com. And, you can reach out to me, email me there. I will be practicing and licensed in a few states, but again, like I said, COVID slows that down. But I'm more than happy to help people figure stuff out in the meantime as somebody who's unlicensed.
That's amazing. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to see you guys.
Likewise, great to see your face again. And we'll definitely do something when we head down to DC.
Deal. All right. You guys have a great rest of the show, and I will listen to you later.
All right. Well,
Sounds
thank
good.
you, my friend.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Nice
night.
meeting you.
Bye, Joe. It was great to meet you.
Same here.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, ladies and gents, that, of course, was Ed Stern. We've had multiple iterations of connection with this man. He's really, truly a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy to see that he's finally finishing his practitioner license to become a psychiatric nurse. So that's awesome. And we're going to move on because we do have to wrap things up. So I'm going to toss it over to Trish because at this point, we're just going to go right into Mama Kim's Minute.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Music, please.
Thank you, Tom. All right, everybody. Here's Mama Kim's Minute. Number 1, Biden administration reverses Trump's ban on rainbow flags at embassies.
Yes.
Number 3, Queer Eye's Bobby Burke. By the way, Queer Eye's coming back. Can't wait. Nina West create children's variety show. Number 3, I skipped a number because I deleted one. So number 2, now number 3, trans billionaire threatens to leave Tennessee over transphobic bills.
Oh, so what do you want to know what the fourth one was?
We already talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so there you go. So all of those will be listed, of course, on our website on tonight's post. So you can go check it out there, GayTalk2.0.com. And now we move on this day in gay history. So the question is when it was April 25th, 1970, where in the United States of America, the term transgendered was used in TV Guide for the first time. And just so that you know, although they use the term transgendered, it is just transgender now. We don't past tense the word transgender. Just saying. This is the first known print use of the term. Transgenderism and transgenderal were used in the 1960s, and today's term transgender first appeared in print in 1974. In this 1970s appearance in TV Guide, the context is Raquel Welch left. Moviedum's sex queen, soon to be seen as the heroine hero of Gore Vidal's transgendered Mira Breckenridge.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
You did a good job.
And I did. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. So that is today on this day in gay history. So, oh God, we're here already? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lord have mercy. Okay, well, ladies and gents, if you love the show, make sure that you go rate, subscribe, and review on your favorite podcasting service. I never say those in the same order every time.
That's fine.
Right? And by subscribing, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your favorite device or web browser as soon as our episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon, which allows you, our listeners, to support the show with a monetary donation. Those donations we collect monthly and can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Oh God.
Is mine correct or?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right.
So next week we welcome Dr. G, Evan Goldstein, for the next installment of Tales from the Tail.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Perk up your ass, girl.
And thank you to our guest, Ed Stern, for joining us on today's show. Once again, it was amazing to catch up with you, and thank you for the information on giraffes and everything psychiatric. You can catch Ed on Inside Out LGBTQ Plus Talk Radio Show on WPFW 89.3 FM in DC, or on the podcast of the same name.
Available on all the podcasters out there. Oh, all right. And now here is Nick with a weekly reminder for all of you bottoms out there who want to keep their buttholes on point. Yes, we're talking about the future method.
Get your discount for the Future Method today. Each time you clean out with water or enemas, delicate tissues are harmed and cells are damaged, increasing chances of injury and or STDs. The first of its kind, doctor-developed formula gently cleanses before you play without hurting your bum. And now you can use code GayTalk20 for 20% off, valid for one purchase or one subscription per person.
Yas, queen. Jay,
I guess it is time
are we ready?
to put a rubber on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want me to give you something?
No,
Am I
I'll
supposed-
move forward. We'll work on that for the next show. Our show is available on our website, gaytalk20.com, under audio podcast. It is also available as a free download on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher Radio.
Nick announces you can find us on social media, Facebook GayTalk 2.0, Instagram GayTalk 2.0, Twitter at GayTalk20. You can email us at GayTalk2.0 at GayTalk20.com.
I'm
Tom,
so
take it
proud
away.
of you, Jay. Although your
Thank
mouth
you.
is very juicy, you are on point.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, if you need to reach out to us, just head on over to our website, click on the Contact Us tab. There you can leave comments, suggest topics, leave a question for the cast or an individual host, like Jay, who's in the seat now.
See.
And you can also call us and leave us a question via voice message. We can answer those for you on the show. The phone number is 334-GAY-TALK, 333. Or if you need all those digits, it is 334 429-8255.
Don't forget the show streams live every Monday at 6 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time. And you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. With that, ladies and gents, that is our show. Thank you. And y'all have a good night.
Bye.
Wait. There it is.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.